I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse.
At 63, Jim Carrey just dropped a revelation that's shaking Hollywood to its core. The beloved comic genius, known for his rubber-faced antics and heartwarming roles, stunned fans by naming 6 actors he openly hated. For decades, Carrey's public persona radiated charm and humor, but behind the scenes, tensions were boiling. Now, for the first time, he's spilling the truth about the colleagues who pushed him to the edge. Will Smith. Jim Carrey didn't develop his disapproval of Will Smith gradually. It happened in a single, unforgettable moment, the 2022 Oscars ceremony when Smith struck Chris Rock on stage. For many, the event was shocking for its physicality. For Carrey, however, the punch itself was not the primary source of horror. He understood the immense pressure of live television, the scrutiny, the emotional stakes. People, even celebrities, could snap. That part, he said, was comprehensible, even human. What he found utterly intolerable was what came next, the industry's reaction and the message it sent. Instead of facing serious repercussions, Smith received applause, not condemnation. Later in the evening, he accepted the award for Best Actor, celebrated by peers and the press alike. Carrey reportedly felt physically sick witnessing the standing ovation. To him, the optics were a direct betrayal of justice and accountability. The incident crystallized a growing unease about Hollywood's double standards. In his eyes, ordinary people would face immediate legal, financial, or social consequences for such an act. The same standards, however, did not seem to apply to those with celebrity and influence. Smith's actions, Carrey felt, were effectively excused, rationalized, and even lionized. Adding to Carrey's outrage was the justification circulating in media and social commentary. Analysts, commentators, and even some peers framed Smith's behavior as heroic, as a protective measure, or as justified indignation. Each narrative, Carrey observed, normalized violence rather than condemning it. In interviews following the event, he made his position unmistakably clear. He stated that, had he been in Rock's position, he would have pursued legal action, seeking damages on the order of $200 million. The message, he insisted, was unmistakable. The powerful and famous receive protection. Accountability is reserved for the ordinary. For Carrey, the implications went far beyond a single altercation. The Oscars incident became a touchstone for what he perceived as systemic dysfunction within Hollywood, an industry increasingly willing to shield its most prominent figures from consequences. It wasn't just about Will Smith as an individual. It was about an environment in which fame equaled immunity, where applause could replace accountability. From that night onward, Carrey reportedly lost not only faith in Smith but in the broader mechanisms of the industry itself. The standing ovation, the media rationalizations, the lack of genuine consequence. These combined to leave a lasting impression. Shia LaBeouf didn't merely offend Jim Carrey. He stepped across a line that most people in Hollywood consider untouchable, even in an industry built on sharp humor and public spectacle. What began as a throwaway joke quickly spiraled into something far darker, exposing a level of hostility that stunned both fans and insiders. The spark came during the 2014 Golden Globe Awards, an event known as much for its barbed comedy as its glamour. While presenting, Jim Carrey made a brief, light-hearted remark referencing Shia LaBeouf's then-recent plagiarism controversy. At the time, Shia had been widely criticized for copying material in a short film and later issuing an apology that itself appeared plagiarized. Carrey's comment fit squarely within the evening's tradition of playful roasting. The room laughed. The moment passed. Or so it seemed. Shia LaBeouf did not see it that way. Instead of brushing it off or responding privately, his reaction reportedly curdled into anger. But rather than confronting Carrey directly or firing back with another joke, Shia chose a far more personal target. He went after Carrey's daughter, Jane, dragging her into a conflict she had nothing to do with. Shortly after the ceremony, Shia posted a video of Jane Carrey's band on social media. On its own, the post might have seemed harmless. What made it vicious was the caption attached to it. Shia repeated long-debunked tabloid rumors about Jim Carrey's private life, resurrecting gossip that had circulated years earlier and had never been substantiated. Even worse, the wording wasn't original. Observers quickly noticed that Shia had lifted the language from an old online rant involving Hugh Grant, simply swapping out names. It felt calculated, careless, and cruel. Those close to Jim Carrey later said the incident deeply unsettled him. Hollywood thrives on sarcasm, parody, and public jabs, but family has long been considered off-limits. Jane Carrey was not a public combatant, not a celebrity provocateur, and not part of the Golden Globes joke. Pulling her into the situation crossed an ethical boundary that many felt should never be touched. Within minutes, Shia deleted the post and issued a rushed apology online, claiming poor judgment and emotional reaction. But the speed of the deletion did little to contain the fallout. Screenshots spread instantly, and the damage was already done. Jim Carrey never responded publicly, nor did he ever mention the incident again. A silence that spoke louder than any rebuttal. Mark Wahlberg. Not every Hollywood clash occurs face-to-face. Some are fired through the media, subtle yet cutting, and few stung Jim Carrey quite like Mark Wahlberg's 2009 remarks. Wahlberg, during an interview discussing celebrities weighing in on political or social controversies, offered a terse, uncompromising opinion. Actors should just act. The comment, casual on the surface, carried a clear implication. Everyone knew exactly who it targeted. Carrey, by then publicly associated with anti-vaccine activism and other controversial causes through his relationship with Jenny McCarthy, had become an unlikely lightning rod in Hollywood debates. Wahlberg's words weren't merely a critique. They were a judgment on Carrey's choices, his public persona, and, by extension, his professional credibility. The sting wasn't in disagreement alone. It was in the messenger. Wahlberg, with a well-documented history of violent incidents and legal troubles during his youth, had risen to stardom largely by defying societal norms and embracing a rebellious persona. To see him suddenly positioning himself as an arbiter of responsibility and propriety felt, to Carrey, profoundly hypocritical. Private sources indicate that Carrey was disturbed not by the statement itself, but by the layered message. Someone with a past defined by provocation was now policing the behavior of others, implying that Carrey's engagement with public causes was irresponsible or detrimental. Carrey opted not to respond publicly, maintaining his silence in the press. But behind closed doors, he reportedly reflected on the remark as a clear illustration of Hollywood's hierarchy and its capacity for quiet coercion. Wahlberg's comments didn't remain isolated to that interview. Sources suggest that in subsequent conversations with colleagues and industry figures, Wahlberg repeated his criticism, framing Carrey's activism as damaging to the profession. The ripple effect was subtle but unmistakable. Industry doors began to close, invitations for high-profile roles waned, and Carrey's once consistent momentum slowed. Meanwhile, Wahlberg's career trajectory continued its upward climb, insulated from the controversy he helped stir. The larger message was unmistakable. This was not casual critique. It was strategic self-preservation. By publicly defining the boundaries of acceptable celebrity behavior, Wahlberg reinforced his own professional image while simultaneously diminishing Carrey's standing. Tommy Lee Jones. Few actors dare to express their feelings as frankly as Tommy Lee Jones, especially with a co-star at the peak of his success. Jones did exactly that. He confronted Jim Carrey face-to-face and made it unmistakably clear that he couldn't stand him. The encounter cut so deeply that even years later, Carrey admits the memory still rattles him whenever he recalls it. The timing made the moment even more shocking. In 1994, Jim Carrey wasn't just successful, he was untouchable. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber had all exploded within a single year, turning him into the biggest comedy star on the planet almost overnight. When he landed the role of the Riddler in Batman Forever, it felt like validation on a whole new level. Even more exciting for Carrey was the chance to work alongside Tommy Lee Jones, an Academy Award winner whose dramatic gravitas he deeply respected. He arrived on set expecting collaboration, mentorship, and maybe even camaraderie. Instead, the atmosphere chilled almost immediately. Crew members later described a persistent tension that never lifted. Jones reportedly viewed Carrey's wild improvisation as a direct threat to the film's balance. To him, Batman Forever already flirted too closely with camp, and Carrey's elastic comedy pushed it further into territory he despised. Jones allegedly voiced his frustration to director Joel Schumacher, insisting the film needed restraint, not excess. Between takes, he kept his distance, offering no small talk, no acknowledgement, and no effort to mask his irritation. At times, he made pointed comments about real actors, spoken just loudly enough for Carrey to hear. The conflict finally erupted one evening near the Warner Brothers lot. Spotting Jones at a small restaurant, Carrey approached him, believing a simple greeting might ease the tension. What happened instead stunned him. Carrey later recalled Jones standing up abruptly, visibly shaking with anger, grabbing him and declaring that he hated him, flatly refusing to tolerate his buffoonery. There was no humor, no exaggeration, and no ambiguity. It was raw hostility. The Kardashians. Jim Carrey never had a personal confrontation with the Kardashians, yet they came to embody, for him, the very aspects of modern celebrity culture he found troubling. The tension between Carrey and the family's cultural dominance surfaced in a striking way during a 2017 Harper's Bazaar event celebrating so-called cultural icons. The gala was designed to honor figures whose work supposedly shaped contemporary culture, a mix of actors, musicians, and influential personalities. When asked why he attended, Carrey delivered a response that stunned attendees. He didn't believe in icons, he said, and striving for them he believed was creatively hollow. While some assumed the remark was made in jest, it was not. Carrey's words were measured, deliberate, and infused with genuine disdain for the event's values. At that very moment, the Kardashians were being photographed as the night's central attraction. To Carrey, this was emblematic of a broader cultural shift. Fame was no longer the result of craft, achievement, or contribution to art, but of branding, exposure, and the careful cultivation of public image. He watched, visibly unsettled, as photographers and guests gravitated toward reality stars, while accomplished artists were often overlooked, their contributions barely acknowledged. The scene struck him as a real-time demonstration of what he saw as the erosion of substance in favor of spectacle. Carrey reportedly left mid-interview, muttering under his breath comparisons to The Truman Show, the 1998 film in which his character's life is manipulated and consumed as entertainment. The metaphor was telling. He felt that the culture surrounding the Kardashians and similar figures represented a manufactured reality, one in which authenticity was secondary to consumption and attention. His departure was not theatrical. It was a deliberate statement of protest, a refusal to endorse the values the event celebrated. A year later, Carrey reiterated his position in interviews, describing the Kardashian phenomenon as unhealthy and emblematic of a broader societal problem. For him, the critique extended beyond personal opinion. It was a commentary on cultural priorities, the commodification of identity, and the hollow allure of fame divorced from talent. That stance effectively closed the door on any future engagement. Carrey did not argue, negotiate, or seek confrontation. He simply withdrew from the orbit of what he perceived as a celebrity culture increasingly dominated by spectacle over substance. Jenny McCarthy. Few chapters in Jim Carrey's life cut as deeply as his relationship with Jenny McCarthy, a connection he rarely discusses, and for reasons that go far beyond typical Hollywood heartbreak. At first glance, their romance seemed like a modern fairy tale. Two charismatic comedians, always smiling, endlessly photogenic, and commanding constant media attention. The chemistry was undeniable, and public appearances painted a picture of effortless joy. Fans swooned, and the media lapped it up. Yet, behind the camera, the dynamics were far more complex, and, in hindsight, fraught with tension that neither could have fully anticipated. Friends and insiders suggest that the trouble began quietly, years before the public recognized it. By 2006 and 2007, nearly every outing, from casual lunches to elaborate dinners, revolved around activism. Instead of light-hearted conversation or personal exploration, the couple's time together became dominated by discussions on autism, vaccines, and media messaging tied to Jenny's campaigns. At the time, Carrey believed he was simply being supportive, standing by a partner he admired. What he didn't realize was that his own public image was subtly, almost imperceptibly, being reshaped. By 2008, Jim Carrey had, almost unintentionally, become one of the most visible faces associated with the anti-vaccine movement. He attended rallies, spoke at events, and contributed financially to initiatives Jenny championed, all ostensibly to support her son and their shared cause. To casual observers, this might have looked like passionate advocacy, but insiders later revealed that Carrey's involvement was less a personal choice and more a reflection of the couple's combined public persona. Opportunities he had once taken for granted began to vanish quietly as studios and brands hesitated to align themselves with someone now linked to controversial activism. As Jenny's stance grew more uncompromising, Carrey began to hesitate. Reports indicate that behind the scenes, she pressured him to match her fervor, reminding him repeatedly of the influence he wielded and criticizing him for what she perceived as half measures. Slowly, what had begun as genuine support transformed into a subtle form of coercion. Carrey realized too late that his identity, both personal and professional, was being redirected without his consent, molded by a partner whose passion bordered on dominance. Their split in April 2010 appeared on the surface to be amicable, but the repercussions were significant. That same week, Jenny announced the closure of her autism school, citing creative differences with her partner. Carrey had considered stepping in to buy out the project and continue it independently, but once the relationship ended, he disengaged completely. What do you think about the actors that Jim Carrey hates? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.